how to improve the interior for our Code 3 bus. Hi, welcome back to St Blazey Model World. If you've seen any of my other videos on Code 3 model bus making, you'll know that a lot of the models that come from the main manufacturers have an interior that is, because it's manufactured, it's injection moulded one piece colour plastic, and that's fine as far as it goes, but we always want to improve these things, and certainly the look of the interior of the bus is just as important as what we see on the outside of our. So the very first step is to apply some primer, because if we try to apply any kind of paint to this raw plastic finish, it simply won't take. We'll be left with a mess when it dries, and we'll have to start all over again. So I like to go with white primer, particularly for the interiors, and it only really needs a thin sort of dusting, couple of coats, just enough to give a surface for our top coat paint to take to once we start applying it. So with our primer applied, we're now free to start applying some top coat colour, and the choice really is yours. Neutral colours that were used in bus manufacturing really applied right throughout the process, and so you can use things like brown, dark browns for flooring, also for seats, because a lot of buses were turned out with dark brown PVC seating, greys, blacks, dark greens also were used. And if you're modelling a Code 3 London Transport model, for example, you can either go with the blue and green check patterns that were used on their buses in the 70s, or on the later models of the 80s they used an orange and brown based check pattern, and you can replicate that fairly easily as well. Your check work doesn't have to be 100% accurate, because you're never going to see it fully, but you are going to be able to apply it in enough detail to give a resemblance of what was there. And when you look into a model that's been treated like that, if it's done reasonably well, close enough is good enough. Now this particular model is going to get some dark green seating, some grey flooring, and the neutral areas such as the areas around the stairwell will probably go with a grey or a sort of dark grey finish there as well. So we'll start applying some colour. We'll start with the bottom deck, the lower deck, and we'll leave our top deck in white primer to give you a before and after viewing of the work that we've managed to do. So the paint drawer comes out of my storage system, and we'll start selecting some colour. This is the green that we're going to use on the interior seating. This is another one of my beloved Tamiya acrylic colours, XF5, dark green, so that'll go onto the seats on both decks. So we'll put that on first. So now we've applied some green paint to our seating area. You'll notice that I've left the tops of the seats unpainted just at the moment. There's a reason for that, and we'll come to that later on. In the cab area of the vehicle, we've applied some green paint to the driver's seat, and looking closely you can see that some green paint has got onto the steering wheel and the cab door there. That doesn't matter, because we're going to paint this detail in later on, and we'll be painting over that, so we haven't got to worry about that at this. The next area that's going to be painted are the backs of the seats, and again there's several different colours I could use for this. One of the colours that was in use was a sort of a fleshy colour, because the backs of seats were often covered in a laminate to make them easy to clean, and on this occasion that's the one we're going to use. So now we've used a flesh colour to apply some seat backs, and I've carried that area of painting on around the entrance to the vehicle and for the driver's cab door and the area around the stairs. Next we're going to add some grey, and I'll put that on the stairs and the luggage rack, and possibly along the floor as well. We'll have a look. Well, we're now at the end of the painting process for our lower deck, and it's moved on considerably from the primered piece that we saw at the beginning of this video. Let's just take a quick look at the top deck to see where we started with. We had some black plastic underneath there, covered that in some white primer which gives a good key for our painting surfaces, and now the lower deck has been treated and I'm happy with the result. So let's take a closer look at what we've achieved. Well, we started by painting the seats in a green, dark green colour, appropriate for the type of vehicle and the period. We've applied some flesh colour to the backs of the seats. Remember I said that represented the laminate backings that these bus seats had, and I've carried that on around the cab and the stair area as well. I was going to paint the floor in a grey, but I've gone for a dark brown, but I have applied grey to certain areas of the lower deck, most notably the luggage rack, the stairwell area, some of the floor treading, and also I've applied grey to the sides of the vehicle on the inside, just so that it gives it something other than white, which really isn't appropriate. We'll just take a brief look at the driver's area. The seat green to match the rest of the vehicle. The steering wheel has been painted black, and the area around the cab, the driver's area there, we've painted in a grey. And again, that's fair enough, close enough and appropriate for the period that we're working with. And as we look at the entrance area for the bus, you can see the driver's cab and his control area in a bit more colour and detail. We've got of course the flooring here and the stairwell leading to the upper deck, and it's quite good. Now you remember that when I painted the seats I left the tops of the seats in the white primer, and I said there was a reason for that, and it doesn't show up particularly well sadly on the video, but what I've done is I've run along the tops of those seats with a silver pen just to give the suggestion that the seat rails are in place. I just want to talk very briefly about this sort of mantra of mine that close enough is good enough. I'm pleased with the result and it does look quite good to me, but of course you're not going to see most of this once the lower deck is situ back in the lower half of the vehicle, and this thing about applying every minute piece of detail, you can, and if you wish to, it's to be applauded, but I often think about some of the better paintings that I've seen in my life, and there is a suggestion of a barn on a hillside, and that's all we're trying to do here. We're creating improvement and we're suggesting that certain things are in place and creating a much more visually pleasing look to our model. Now, just to reinforce that point, I've just put the lower deck seating back into the model and put the windows in place as well, and we'll look at the driver's cab here for a start, and we can see some detail, and I think it does improve the look of the model. And we'll just move this model forward, and you can see some detail that we've applied around the seating area. It definitely enhances the look of the model, but the fact is a lot of the work we've done cannot be seen, and so this is why I say to people we are simply improving, creating the suggestion of detail without actually applying a vast amount of detail. It's simply not necessary. And just lastly, although it's still covered in white primer, I've just put the top deck back in without the treatment that we've applied to the lower deck to give you an idea of comparison once the model will be put back together. All that remains now is to give the top deck the same treatment that we've given to the lower deck. Although this has been done to create a Code 3 project model, there is nothing to stop you doing this to any of your existing models once you become comfortable with taking them apart and putting them back together. And of course any improvements that you do make, well, I think they're aesthetically pleasing and add to the overall appearance of the model itself. Now the next time that we see this model, we'll be dealing with the outside of the vehicle, and in that video I plan to cover a number of different techniques for painting models. That's it for this one. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful, informative, maybe entertaining as well. Please don't forget to subscribe. It does make a difference. We'll see you again soon on St Blazey Model World.